Welcome to the Hood, Sisterhood N 60. My name is Christy Little Jones, and my co host is Nicole Clough. However, she's a little under the weather tonight, so the show must go on. Tonight, we are talking about surviving the storms in marriage. Mm, 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 mm. It is going to be so good. But before we dive in, I want to tell you a little bit about me. If you haven't met me or if I haven't met you yet, my name is Christy Little Jones. I am a relationship coach, a marriage and family champion, and the chief cheerleader for women all over the world. I am also the founder of the Wife Wisdom podcast that I did for 3 consecutive years. And I'm super excited about it because I truly have a heart for marriage. I love encouraging and inspiring women and couples and the men who love us. And so tonight, let's go ahead and get started. So, surviving the storms in marriage. So, I want to share a little bit, just some of the ahas that I've learned in almost 20 years of marriage. Because, I didn't realize that marriage was going to be so difficult. I've always, literally, since I was probably 12, 13 years old, I could not wait to get married. I could not wait to have children. I just thought and dreamt about being married and having children since I was a little girl. So when I finally became a wife, I was like, yes, 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 I'm here. I made it. Well, the courtship of marriage was awesome, right? Amazing. I called my husband Adrian the broom because he literally swept me off my feet and I was enamored with him. I just was totally in love and was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing, right? And then we always have heard about the honeymoon being over. So it took a few years before I felt like the honeymoon is over and real life is setting in. And, one of the things that I realized about marriage is that you have two separate lives that you are merging together, two separate upbringings, two separate perspectives, two separate opinions, two separate likes, dislikes, pet peeves, and all the things in between. And so when it's time to merge them together as one, it's no joke. Right. So if this is your first time to Sisterhood in 60, let me just tell you, Sisterhood in 60 is about real conversation, real topics with real women. And these are topics that you might think about, but you may not talk about. You may not express them because you feel like, can I say that? Well, you can say it here. And so marriage has been amazing. It's been a lot of awesome highs, a lot of ups and celebrations and victories that make you really solidify your heart's desire to know that this is going to be happily ever after, right? But then there are also some serious storms, some serious lows. Adrian and I have dodged several bullets. We have overcome many hurdles, obstacles. We've survived numerous valleys, as I am sure you and your marriage have as well. And so we have recently come out of a valley in our marriage. We are celebrating 20 years this year. Woo, 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 right? Can I just say, yay? I am so proud of us, right? Because listen, y'all, wives, you already know marriage is not for punks. It is not for wimps. It is not for those who are not resilient. Let's just call it what it is. And so nobody tells us this, right? We're like, oh, I can't wait to get married. But the thing is like most of us when we think about marriage and we think about, I just want to be married, I just want to have somebody to love me for the rest of my life, that, you really don't understand the all of the workings and all the makings of those successful marriages that last 60 plus years, right? And so it's interesting because I have started watching Married at First Sight. I know it's been around for many, many years, and I've watched episodes here and there. And so just most recently have started watching full episodes. And I just laugh at some of the young women and men who are getting married at first sight, and they go into it with this happily ever after look in their eyes and feeling and desire in their hearts. And not to say that marriage cannot be happily ever after. You cannot be happy in marriage. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, me included, I, as a woman who just loves romance and loves, and it just am romantic at heart, I went in thinking and believing that marriage was going to be way easier than it has been. And so when storms have hit and have shaken us at the foundation and the core of our marriage, I knew that I had to have a solid understanding, a solid vision for my marriage, a solid commitment with to my husband in my marriage, and just an understanding of what God's idea of marriage was. And so having those things going in, I believe, has helped me to weather the storms of marriage. And let me just say that I was married before. This is my second marriage. I got married to my college sweetheart several years after college, and he was my very best friend. We got married, and literally with the weekend after we got married, I cried uncontrollably, and I had no idea why. I thought it was the letdown of the marriage. I wasn't sure. And I just bawled for no reason and didn't really know why, but I think my soul knew, right? Because being married is probably one of the biggest decisions that you will ever make in your life, because who you marry is, if you have children with them, especially, that person, that individual, their characteristics, their good, their bad, their flaws, their all of the things that who they are will show up in your children, usually in one way, shape, or form. So the decision for marriage is huge. And while I love and will always love my former husband, I just it wasn't the right timing, or it wasn't the right person for me to marry, period. And so when we went through our divorce, I was devastated. And I really know that I felt I had an encounter with the Lord right after we had separated. And there was just a level of comfort, and I felt like it was this warm honey in this time and space that I had with God. And he's like, "Daughter, I knew that you would be here." And I was reminded that before we were even in our mother's womb, right, God knew us. And he knows the plans that literally, he knows the plans that he has for us. So everything in our life does not take God by surprise. And so even though I have been married twice, and this is my second marriage, we'll be married 20 years, I didn't realize that it was going to look the way it looks. And so going through these storms in marriage, I felt like just had a heart to help couples, engaged couples, prepare for marriage, to prepare for these storms, because the divorce rate in marriages, the divorce rate in Christian marriages is off the chain. And I always thought, well, why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard to be married successfully? Right. And I think there are a lot of reasons that we can't get into tonight, but a couple of reasons that I do know is that if my husband and I did not have a relationship with the Lord prior to getting married, we probably would not have known what God's idea of marriage was in the first place. And so God's idea in for marriage is to one for to help procreate, really to procreate and have children. Two is to be an image of God, not only towards and with each other, but in the earth. And three, for pleasure, right? So God created sex for marriage. And so when you don't understand the purpose of something, abuse is inevitable. So if you don't understand the purpose or God's idea for marriage or God's idea for his just really being examples of him in the earth, a reflection of him in the earth, then abuse is inevitable. So as we go, so going through the ups and downs of marriage with my husband, there are a few things that I've learned about surviving the storms of marriage and really pressing through those valleys because I just think as women, we expect marriage to be an A plus at all times, a 10 at all times. And when it dips to a 2 or it dips to a 1, many times we panic and sometimes we run straight to the divorce court. Like, oh, hell no, right? Then what happened here? Like there is no way I will ever be able to get to happily ever after, right? But then when you understand the foundation, right? What we talked about, the foundation of your commitment, your relationship with God, your understanding of the purpose of marriage, then that is your foundation. Then when those storms come, you're like, okay, I'm not going to be shaken because I knew this was coming. And so that is what I have done for about 17 years is literally helped engage couples prepare for marriage so when the storms come they don't get shook. Right? That are able to stand and they learn how to press in to the storm, weather the storm in marriage so that they can make it to 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years and beyond. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to talk to you about the storms and the things that you can do to prepare. So, before we finish or before I kind of go into that, I want to make sure that you subscribe. Subscribe below, click the button and be sure to turn on the notifications so that you can become a part of our tribe. So, let's go ahead for number 1. So, number 1, really surviving the storms in marriage is to remember the vision. Remember your marriage vision. Now, you have a marriage vision, right? You have a vision, an understanding, a desire, a dream, a goal for your marriage. So when things get really tough, when you really don't like your spouse very much, that's the time you need to remember why you married them, why you said I do, why you had children with them, why you are, really were planning for your future together. That is the time when you remember. Now, emotionalism or your emotions can completely jack you up. 100%. Emotions, I most of the time will jack up your marriage if you do not know how to manage them, regulate them, recognize them, hone them in, take authority over them, right? Unless you know how to do that, your emotions can completely jack your marriage up. So you want to remember the vision for your marriage. If you need to, there are many times in my journaling time that I will write them down and I will just bullet point them. I married Adrian because I love Adrian because, right? Because I have to work through this emotion and the offense that has taken place during this storm because that's usually what takes place. That is the second point. Take note of your offenses. So, offense is we're going to do an episode specifically on offense because it is no joke. So there are 4, most people think there are 4 stages of offense, but they're really 6. So, the first stage is shock, where you're completely shocked that your husband talked to you this way, he did X, Y, and Z, or, you know, offense can come in many different ways, shape, or forms, right? So shock is the first stage of offense. Second stage is anger. Oh, who the heck does he think he's talking to, right? So then there's shock, then there's anger, then there's sorrow, like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for my marriage? Where can we make it from here? Right. So then there's like this sorrow. And this is more than just a bad hair day. This is like a deep rooted sorrow where there's a deep level of concern about, oh no, what is life going to look like after this? Right. So then there's sorrow, and then there's acceptance. So there are the four stages of offense typically are these four stages: shock, anger, sorrow, and acceptance. Now, most people, if when they don't recognize offense or pride gets in the way, they literally bounce back and forth like a ping pong ball or a pinball machine? Yes, like a pinball machine, and it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and they literally jump from any one of these stages at any time. It can be triggered by anything. Could be triggered by not enough sleep. It could be triggered by a song that you hear. It could be triggered by seeing his car or a similar car on the road. It could be triggered by anything. And then you are right back to that negative emotion of shock, anger, sadness, whatever. And then it just goes around and around and around. And so now people are in marriages carrying these offenses, being triggered back to these negative emotions all day, every day. So you tell me, how can marriages survive that? They can't, because offense and emotion will jack up your marriage. So now, after you take note of your offenses and you recognize what your offenses are, or you discuss them with your spouse, or really check yourself, like, you know what? I don't even know why I'm offended about this. Or you dig a little deeper with yourself, like, why am I really offended by this? Why does this bother me? Because it's not a big deal. Because if my best friend did this to me, or my best girlfriend said this to me, I wouldn't be offended. So why am I offended that my husband is said this to me and I'm ready to walk out the door? So now you need to do some self-reflection, right? As to, huh, okay, I'm not really mad at this. I'm mad because he did X, Y, and Z a year ago, and I have never forgiven him, or I've never let it go. Right. So, again, the four stages of offense. Now, the fifth stage of offense is forgiveness. Right. Most people don't recognize that the offense that they're carrying, or they have that has been embedded into their heart or their soul, that forgiveness is the only thing that's going to free them. Now, forgiveness is not a feeling. You are not going to feel like forgiving. Your husband cheated on you, your husband lied to you, your husband, talked to you any kind of way like you were his child. Like, you are not going to feel like it. You have to decide to forgive. So forgiveness is a decision, not a feeling. When you decide to forgive someone, when you release them from you release yourself from carrying the burden of the offense, and you release them without any expectation in return, without punishing them. That is really the true heart for forgiveness. It will catapult you to the sixth stage, which is complete healing. And when you can get to a place where you are a master at forgiveness, you are mastering the art and the skill of forgiving your spouse over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Guess what? You will get to happily ever after. It is a thing. So, practicing forgiveness is huge. It is huge. So, that really needs to be another stage, right? Really forgiving the offenses that have literally built up over time. And that's what happens. If you do not address a certain offense, it will not only start in your heart, but it will start to layer. So now you have all of these offenses that are layering over each other over and over and over. And when it gets too many, when the offenses get too high and it gets too many because you haven't addressed any of them, most people are out. They're gone. They're at the divorce court. And there's been no communication about the offenses. There hasn't even been an there has the offenses haven't even been addressed in the marriage because most people don't like confrontation, right? Some people love it, but some don't like it. So they just would, let me just shove it under the rug. And that's when the offenses pile up. So it's really important to recognize the offense, address the offense, know what stage you're in, and really work on practicing forgiveness because that's what marriage is. And marriage is is the constant and consistent forgiving of your spouse. Period. So then let's go to number 3. Check your energy. Now, because one thing I have learned in marriage and really counseling, coaching numerous couples the last 17 years is that most men and women think very differently and they understand things differently because they have different filters, right? So if you got to check your energy. If you got an attitude with your husband and you haven't addressed it, you haven't brought it up, you haven't told him what he did to piss you off, he probably doesn't have any clue. He probably doesn't even know why you're mad. He probably doesn't even know because we think differently, right? We have different perspectives. So he might have said something and didn't realize that he said it with a tone or he said it, he was kind of short with it. And you are like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, right? But then he's like, hey, babe. And you're like, stay away, right? So you got to check your energy, your attitude. Do you have an attitude towards your spouse, and he has no idea why? And so now he's guarding himself. He's like, okay, she's got an attitude. I'm going to give her space because a lot of times that's how men deal with it, right? They like their space in order to kind of process and then they kind of come back to the den. But mm-mm. But we expect our husbands to be like, babe, what's wrong? Did I do something? That's not how they think. So it's up to us to be mature enough, emotionally mature enough to have the conversation with them to let them know, you know what, I did not like when you talk to me like this. Or I did not like you having this conversation in front of the kids. Or I didn't appreciate da 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 da, right? So then they know, but then it's your job to forgive, practice the forgiveness, and get back to your natural state. Don't say that you're okay, but you're not really okay. Women do that all the time. I don't know why. Don't say, like, if you're not okay, say you're not okay. So then it gives your husband a heads up. That really clears up a lot of confusion, miscommunication, breakdowns in the communication in marriage. So when you're able to communicate effectively, efficiently, without emotion, and sometimes it may be emotional, but at least you know say I'm a little emotional about this, or now's not a good time to talk about it because I'm emotional about it. I need some space. I need some time. Don't let that go days and days and weeks because that's just shoving it under the rug. Okay. Then, but it's important to check your energy. Next is press in to what's uncomfortable. This is a practice that I've started really early on in my marriage. And I found that it made all the difference in surviving the storms in my marriage. So when I say press in to what's uncomfortable, ladies, you know where I'm going. Making love to your husband when you really don't like him is pressing in to what's uncomfortable. So when God says your body is not your own, this is what I'm talking about. When you get married, your body is not your own, especially when you study your spouse and you know his threshold. So when you know his threshold, which could be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, and you're still mad, you're still, you guys are still offended, you're in a really rough place, guess what? Pressing in to what's uncomfortable can really break the distance, the disappointment, the discord in your marriage. And I charge you as the glue in your marriage. You may not have known that you're the glue in your marriage. Yes, you are. Wives are the glue. They keep it all together. And it's you literally, and the influence not only that you have in your husband's life, but the influence that you have in your children's lives, it really is like a twofer, right? So if you're pressing in to what's uncomfortable with your spouse, where you are apologizing, you're initiating intimacy, you are just holding his hand or really doing some nice gesture to get back to your happy place. Not only are you solidifying and creating that safe space for your husband, but you are also modeling forgiveness, love unconditionally, and commitment to your children. It's huge, huge, huge. So when you press in to what's uncomfortable, it really takes a level of maturity, emotional maturity to do this. So when you are working on yourself and you are recognizing the pride in your heart around certain things, like, no, he needs to apologize. I didn't do it. It's his fault. That's when you know that you need to work on emotional maturity. Because if you are doing a tit for tat in marriage, this is his fault. This isn't my fault. I didn't do this. He did this. You may not make it, because it literally is a marriage is about sacrifice. Marriage is about a bigger vision. Marriage is about humility. It really pride there is no room for pride in marriage. Pride in marriage ruins marriages. I'm going to say it. So you've got to get to a place where you are working on becoming humble, where you are working on, where are my blind spots? We all have them. We all have blind spots in our relationships. And pride will completely blind you from your blind spots to the point where you have no idea how you talk to people, how you make your husband feel, how you come off to others, because those are your blind spots. And it's important for you to have people in your life, ideally your spouse, or really a close circle of friends who can let you know where your blind spots are. And those are the things that you need to work on daily. And again, when you work on them and you are able to overcome them, sometimes there's another blind spot that pops up. And you're like, dang, I didn't realize I was so raggedy, right? We are all raggedy in many, many ways. And it's so important for us to recognize those raggedy areas. So, really important to press in to what's uncomfortable. So, excuse me, even when I'm frustrated with Adrian, or I'm like, how did I get here? Like, this isn't what I expected, God. Like, you set me up, right? So I'm having these conversations like, don't I don't even like him right now. I don't even want to be around him right now. And, initially in marriage, I was scared to think that way. I was scared to even say that to God, right? But now I'm like, God, this is your son, and I need you to help me see him the way you see him, because I don't. And I don't like him very much. And so when I was super honest with myself and how I felt in my marriage, it freed me up from trying to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist, right? The only thing that's perfect is God. The only thing that is perfect is him. So why am I trying to be something that I can never be without him, right? So if when I really was raw with my emotions, the way I really felt in my journal, in my quiet time with myself, it freed me from this false sense of self with my husband. So I was able to be not only vulnerable in that moment with God, but I was able to be vulnerable with myself to say, oh, wow, I really need to strengthen my confidence, or I really need to strengthen my belief in whatever. And so being able to look at yourself in the mirror is such a beautiful gift to yourself and to your marriage. When you can see yourself and you can see your blind spots and you work on them daily, and then you shift and you are now implementing the changes and the ahas that you've learned in your marriage. So you're pressing in to what's uncomfortable. It truly changes your your interaction, your emotional connection, your your oneness with your spouse. Is such a beautiful thing because sometimes there's a spouse. So I'm a peacekeeper and I'm a peacemaker. So, and my husband probably is neither, right? So I have done a lot of the apologizing, even though it was not my fault. I've done a lot of the peacekeeping. And there's a difference between peacekeeping and people pleasing. Come on. Imma just tell you, I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I know the 2. So, there are people pleasing is when you shut down to just get along, even though you are hurt or you're angry or you're offended and you never express that, right? So, you shrink yourself in order to keep the peace, to get along because confrontation is so uncomfortable. You can't even bear having the conversation. You think about having the conversation and you get a lump in your throat. So I've had to really work, because that's a blind spot, right? Work on overcoming people pleasing so that I can be successful and create and cultivate healthy relationships. Because people pleasers, it's difficult to have a healthy relationship if the relationship that you're in shuts you down and shrinks you. Okay. Then let me just say, number 5, marriage takes 2 to thrive. I have coached many women who wanted to save their marriage and their husbands didn't want to put in the work. And then they felt, oh my gosh, this is my fault. It is not. It takes 2 in your marriage to thrive. It takes you doing the work and your spouse doing the work. You cannot do the work for both of you to end up in a successful marriage or to weather the storms in marriage. If the 2 of you have not committed to agree to weather the storms together, do your own self personal work on your blind spots individually for each other together. It's going to be literally like pushing up a 1,000-pound boulder up a hill by yourself. You're going to collapse, right? And so remember that if you are putting in the work, if you're doing the work on yourself, you're doing the work on your blind spots, and your husband's like, good for you. You need to be going to some counseling and coaching. You need to be doing the work because it's all your fault. I'm just saying. It takes 2. And trust me, the storms in marriage are often caused, if it's not caused by some external event, right? Where you have something that you can't even, um, you know, we've got a tornado and it completely destroys and takes everything that you have, right? That's not something that you could have prevented necessarily. So I'm talking about the emotional aspect of marriage that brings a storm where there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of understanding, there's a lack of pressing in, there's a lack of forgiveness, there's a lack of connection and intimacy. And so those are the things that I'm referring to. And so it's really important too that you recognize that marriage is like this. We're like, like a roller coaster. I used to like roller coasters when I was younger, not so much now. But it's like a roller coaster, and if you could ride the roller coaster, and during those valleys, during those storms, that you can literally, when you're going down, it goes tick, 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 tick. Like, I was never one of those to raise their hand and be like, "Ah!" I'm holding on like this, right? And when they take pictures of you going and, around the roller coaster, and you leave the roller coaster ride and they've got the picture of you. For me, I was always gripping, screaming. And that's how sometimes marriage is too. The valleys and the storms that you're going to weather. Sometimes you are looking like that, especially scary things like money. Your spouse loses their job, or you lose their job, or there's a health issue or a health scare. Sometimes marriage is like that. And but again, the mutual commitment, the mutual conversation, the mutual connection, the mutual communication, the self-work on the blind spots, and implementing the ahas that you've learned about yourself are critical to surviving the storms in marriage. And so I want to share too that uh the the podcast that I started in 2018 was called Wife Wisdom. And I remember starting it when my husband and I were on a little mini vacation. And I really felt called to create this podcast to really encourage wives. So it's a way of encouraging women who desired to be married, women who were newly married and wanted to thrive as a wife, and also seasoned wives who really needed encouragement to stay a wife. Because I found that when women started creeping up to like 18, 19, 20 years of marriage, they were kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And we had many storms during that 18, 19, and this is our 20th year, and we're coming out of a storm. And I was like, oh, this is what these wives were talking about. Oh, I get it now. And so I wanted to create something that gave a little, not only encouragement, but validation to what you were going through as a wife, that you are not going through this by yourself and alone. There are many of us who are understanding exactly what you're going through. And we have different husbands, but the similar experiences that we can literally bond with. So if you want to listen, I have taken a hiatus after my dad died, in 2021, to just put it on pause for a while, but go to iTunes or Spotify and search Wife Wisdom with Christy Little Jones. There are several hundred audios, like podcasts that you can listen to on all different topics. And I interviewed some amazing people, men and women, along the way. And I may go back to doing some more one day, but right now, this is really the platform that me and Nicole are really excited to bring some real conversation, real talk, real topics to you on Sisterhood N 60. And so I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today as I shared just some nuggets, some wisdom, some ahas that I've learned in almost 20 years of marriage, and really surviving the ups and downs of marriage that's inevitable. I believe in every marriage, and really surviving the storms is the key. And so remember to always keep the vision. Keep your vision for your marriage. Take note of the offenses that come daily sometimes. And it could be in the smallest little thing. Like, I can't believe my husband went to the store and didn't even ask me if I needed anything. That could be an offense. And if you allow it to get bigger, it can grow into something more. And really just check your energy, check your attitude. How are you being towards your spouse? And if you're wanting them to do something and they have no clue what you're wanting them to do, speak up. Talk to them about it. Also, practice forgiveness. This is huge, huge, huge. This is like, listen, if you can get forgiveness down, you are winning. Hashtag winning. You are a winner if you can overcome the offenses and really practice forgiveness. Also, remember to press into what's uncomfortable. Practice it, be intentional with it, press in, initiate intimacy and closeness, apologize, really work on you and overcoming the emotionalism. Don't be led by your emotions, be led by your intentions, not your emotions, okay? Also, recognizing that it takes two in your marriage. Like, you can't do it yourself. You cannot control your spouse's reactions, responses, his commitment level, you can't do that. All you can do is focus on you. So focus on you and become the best version of yourself in your marriage, and pray that your husband does the same and is committed to do the same. And then you will survive the storms in marriages over and over and over and over. Survive the storm in your marriage over and over and over and over again. And so, thank you again for being with me tonight. I am excited that my co-host Nicole Clough will be back with us next week. Please pray for her this week because she is not feeling well, but she does send her love to you and misses you, and we'll see you next week. And so be sure to join our tribe at it's bit.ly join love and sisterhood. Become part of our tribe. We'd love to not only send you emails, updates, we've got new things coming out, and really just want to connect with you on a deeper level. Also, we always are dropping a new t-shirt. So we love t-shirts. We love being able to express our voice on our shirts, our she shirts. And so check out the she shop as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sisterhood N 60, Love and Sisterhood, and turn on those notifications. And we always can just continue the conversation on Facebook at Love LUV and Sisterhood. And that's what our Instagram hashtag is as well, Love LUV and Sisterhood. So again, thank you so much, sister, for just being here and for just connecting with us each and every week on Sisterhood N 60. Again, my name is Christy Little Jones and my co-host Nicole Clough. We love you, we thank you, and cannot wait to see you next week. Have a good one.